Welcome to Spleensplaining, a human design podcast by Leslie.
Hey everyone, it's Leslie back again with another episode of Spleensplaining. Today, I really want to redefine and reframe the notion of shadow work. Shadow work is another term for the conversations that I have been having on this podcast already, dealing with embodiment, integrating the conscious and the subconscious mind, manifestation, working with superconscious energies. Shadow work is part and parcel. Shadow work is just another word to call shedding light on the unconscious. I really even think the term unconscious is somewhat of a misnomer. Of course, there is a such thing as an unconscious. There is plenty of information that's coming at us that we're not consciously aware of. Our brain filters out relevant information for us, and then the rest of it we're not consciously aware of. Obviously, there are plenty of memories from our past that we're not consciously aware of. The unconscious exists, but that word kind of suggests that it's totally unconscious and that that's a fixed state. But what we know, and what a lot of us have probably experienced, is that you can bring greater awareness to your unconscious. And that process is often what we call shadow work. It is looking at specifically the part of our unconscious that is disowned, is qualities of ourselves, things that we've done, our reactions, motivations that our conscious mind can't quite deal with, whether it wants to dissociate from it because it judges it, whether it's something that connects to trauma that we're not aware of. The shadow work piece of working with the unconscious or the subconscious really tends to have a negative quality associated with it. It is a way that we otherize and demonize this part of our subconscious. And in the language that we use, and of course, language and how we describe and define things is really, really important. We have a dynamic in our unconscious called the unconscious observer, and it makes assumptions based on the actions that we take. And I kind of want to do a whole video on the unconscious observer because it's fascinating, so I won't go too much into it, but we're telling our unconscious observer specific things about ourselves and our reality in the way that we behave. And what I love about human design and the work that I do is it is much more integrated. It's not ascribing negative qualities. Yeah, there are distortions in our unconscious, and as you start to integrate, as you start to bring conscious mind and the unconscious into a closer marriage to where they communicate with each other and work together as the tools that they're meant to be for the total picture of our awareness, you do, especially at first, have to sift through a lot of unconscious matter that is unpleasant, that we're dissociating from for a reason, because it's painful, because it's difficult to deal with and to look at. That all exists, but it's important to choose our language carefully. And with human design, this process of integrating those two parts of ourselves, our conscious mind and our body or our subconscious, is called following your authority. It is a process of tuning into the inherent wisdom in this body, taking the authority away from the mind. If we're living up in our mind and letting our mind run our lives, we're participating in that mind-body split, and we are dissociating from the body, from our subconscious, because of that shadow content, right? But when we describe this process in terms of shadow work, as if that's all it is, it's not just your shadow. It's so much more than that. It is your authority in this life. It is your innate embodied wisdom, and it's the gatekeeper to the superconscious energies. The shadow is almost like a temporary thing. It's like the guardian at the threshold. It's all this stuff that is going to be a hurdle to get through, but once you're through it and you've cleared out your subconscious a bit and it's not scary or freaky or uncomfortable or anxiety producing to be embodied anymore, then you're off and running and you're using your subconscious for what it's for. It is your tool to access the superconscious energies. It is our only gateway and our only portal to the infinite creative mind, and it's how manifestation happens. I think it's really important to dismantle our thoughts around shadow work and really see that shadow work is just this slice of the pie when it comes to dealing with our subconscious and integrating conscious and subconscious, otherwise known as, and what I would call, embodiment. Part of the reason that shadow work and this embodiment work is so difficult is because we are programmed. Everything about this program, everything about our conditioning wants to keep us up in our head. And it's obvious why. If our subconscious is our own gateway, as our own gatekeeper for the superconscious energies, well, then keeping us up in our head, keeping us dissociated from our bodies, keeping us otherizing these bodies as if this is not part and parcel to who we are, it disconnects us from our cellular intelligence. It disconnects us from our innate wisdom for the true path in this lifetime in human design. It's our authority. It is the tool for operating correctly and really living out our fullest potential. So again, if it's the gatekeeper to the superconscious energies, then manifesting the life as we see fit, being empowered, being fully ourselves and being authentic isn't possible if we are living up from our minds and detached from our true selves. The body is the most authentic that it gets. The body doesn't lie. It's completely honest. It has no agenda for you. It really doesn't have an ego. That's up in the mind. And not to demonize the ego, because I don't like doing that. It is just as necessary as any other part of ourselves. But if you really want to get down to what's true for you, what's right for you, your honest reactions, feelings, your truth, that is in the body. That is your authenticity. That is stripped from all the conditioning, all of this mask dance. I'm left angle cross of masks in human design. And so I take off my mask and I encourage everybody to take off their masks. And the way that I do this, the way that I have found for me is embodiment. And shadow work is a part of that. But I think it's really important to just frame it as embodiment. Just see embodiment as this process of coming down from our minds and be willing to feel what the body feels. Be willing to know what the body knows. Because the wisdom of the body just sort of works differently. And it is the key to our authority in human design. Even if you have an ego authority and you need to verbalize, it's still that deep, embodied, somatic pulse that you are going with. It is your body's deep reaction to what you're saying. Or you might be saying something that's coming from deep inside yourself and you're not even consciously aware of it until you hear yourself speak it. And then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I felt that way. It's coming from deep within. All of our authorities, splenic, emotional. The wisdom is felt within. Whether the process involves an external environment, the moon, verbalizing, the wisdom still comes from within. It is still that feeling inside that is nonverbal, that is going to guide your way, that is going to structure your authority and what it has to tell you. And the fact that it is nonverbal can be very difficult, right? That's the point. It is so very different than the conscious mind and its rationalizations. We like to live up there. It's more comfortable for us. But I think we can kind of take some of the drama out of the embodiment process if we stay away from concepts like shadow work. Honestly, this can be a process of joy. I mean, a lot of my embodiment practices have to do with dance. And in fact, I am so excited. I have a new offering that I'm developing that is going to be a dance-based somatic process for us to decondition. So look out for that. It is going to be so awesome. Anyways, the practice of embodiment, integrating conscious and subconscious mind, does not have to be scary or spooky. Yes, there is stuff down there that is difficult. It is a challenge, but that's the spiritual process. That is the quest in this life. You have everything that you need. And even if you feel you don't, the resources will come in the 11th hour. They just will. You will be able to process whatever is there. I encourage you. I also strongly encourage you to think about those resources and have people that you can rely on. Get that stacked up for yourself if you do want to do this work, because yes, there is a shadow component to it. Yes, you're going to have to take an honest look at yourself, and it's excruciating, but it's so worth it. And that is temporary. That's just kind of why I want to shift this language, is because you never really get away from shadow work. But once you really slay those initial dragons and you deal with the dweller at the threshold, it's this concept of before you are able to integrate with your subconscious and start to access those super conscious energies, that is your birthright, that is your power in this life, that you get to do with what you choose. You're going to be tested. You're going to have to slay those demons and take an honest, excruciating look at your own self and just own it and claim it and and deal with it. You will know how. It's an individual process. There are billions of videos out there on shadow work, so I'm not going to repeat that information here. But even in the shadow work phase of embodiment, we can help ourselves so much by just taking care of the body, by loving ourselves, by resting, doing joyous, ecstatic dance practices guided by Leslie of spleen splaining, right? It does not have to be such a horrible process. Again, we just want to reframe this idea of shadow work, because what if we saw it as befriending ourselves? What if we saw it as becoming our full selves? These are just different ways to shift this. Just in the very term shadow work, we are communicating to our subconscious, again, that it's something outside of ourselves. It's polarizing language. And so to me, embodiment really fits that back together in a nice way, because our shadow is not other. Our subconscious is not other. Our subconscious is our true self. Our subconscious is our true authority. And I'm so grateful that as a body worker, I have had tons of experience with the subconscious as the tool that it really is. So in body work, I am assisting the person in relaxing. They can suspend their self-consciousness, they suspend their conscious mind, and they just kind of either go to sleep, or it's almost like they're astrally traveling. They're so relaxed, they're in such a parasympathetic state that their conscious and self-conscious process is switched off, and they're just open. And when that happens, their subconscious is a little bit closer to the surface, and I am able to pick up on things from their subconscious. I'm tuning into their body, I'm tuning into my own body, and it's like our unconsciouses are communicating, and their body will guide me directly to where I need to go. And the fact that people comment more times in a week than I can count that, wow, how did you know? It makes me lose sight of the fact that that is a miraculous phenomenon for them not to say anything, and yet I can still read their energy field. I can still read into their subconscious and know where to go and know what's going on with them. It's just, any body worker who's worth their salt will tell you, well, I shouldn't say that, but any body worker who is working on an energetic level as well is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And even ones that are more skeptical of that kind of thing, I think they would know what I'm talking about too. Anyways, it is just miraculous, but that's just how it works. The reason I say I'm grateful for that is it does give me that different perspective on the subconscious. I'm here to love and hold space for my body, show love and hold space for other people's bodies, and help them to do the same. So dealing with the subconscious in that way is very, very different. It shows respect, honor, it bows to the sacred unconscious. It is contrary to everything that's in the conditioning that tells us our bodies are just this other thing that is problematic. It causes you pain, it causes you aches, it breaks down, it has issues. We demonize it and we otherize it, and we do the same thing to the shadow. So I just really want to wipe the slate clean of all of that stuff in my conversations around embodiment and integration of the mind-body split, because I am just so sick of building up this other and becoming so polarized in ourselves that we're actually sometimes shooting ourselves in the foot of that process, of our own shadow work, and really making it harder on ourselves and creating unnecessary drama and suffering on top of this process. When getting a massage, dancing, going for a walk, all of these things are actually gentle ways to access that cellular intelligence. It's not all just about shadow work. There are so many ways to approach this. When you build a foundation in the calm times, when you're feeling steady and good, if you are doing practices to work with the body and work with the subconscious when you're not in conflict, then that really makes those times of conflict and those confrontations with your own shadow that much easier. So I'm going to give an example from my recent life experience that kind of highlights this and some of what I've learned. So I was invited again to a healing circle that I had been to once before. And the first time I went, I was running late. I had just met with two local manifestor women in my area that are awesome, and I was feeling really high and full of life and full of love because of this meetup that I had with these women. So I'm on this buzz, and I go to the healing circle for the first time, and I just had a wonderful time. Second time I went, my spleen was activated, and I actually had a human design reading from a fabulous woman, and she really wanted me to be practicing feeling into people and situations more deeply and trying to access my spleen. Like, it was specific homework for me. So The first time I was primed in a very different way for this experience than the second time, right? So the second time I come back to this healing circle and my spleen clicked on immediately of no, I do not want to give my energy to this. I didn't make a scene, I didn't say anything, but I just sat quietly and without giving my energy away to it, actually it wasn't cohesive. It just felt really cumbersome and I felt bad. My mind tried to badger me into participating because I'm like, oh, this is awkward. It's not like last time, but my spleen said no and I had to agree with that. And I talked to a friend afterwards and she was like, what are you talking about? So my spleen had said no. My friend, she didn't know what I was talking about. Then the group facilitator shared some literature, shared some reading with us that, boom, okay, it gave me the information that I needed to know about what this group was, and that was what my spleen was trying to say to me. It is a group that whips up spiritual energy, that tries to raise the energy and get people into an ecstatic state, and then it funnels that towards the guru or the facilitator or whomever. So that specifically was what my spleen was trying to avoid and saying no to, because we're done with this. We're done with this. That's what the program is about, is to get you to give your power away, and they can only do it if you're not embodied, if you're not listening to your authority, if you're cut off from your wisdom. That's the only way they can do it. And it is so important at this time that we start to embody, and it's so important that we get honed in on our authority in this life and take back our power. All of that I created, all of that ecstasy that I was feeling the first time that I did this healing circle was mine. I created it. I had given credit to this group, but the second time when I didn't participate, nope, nothing. It felt bad. It was very important for me to see. And my friend had her own separate experience, and I didn't need her validation to know what my spleen was telling me. And that was just a message for me. She's on her own path. But I know for me, the work that I do in this world and my authority, it's never going to lead me down a path where I'm giving my power away, where I am allowing my sacred energy and my sacred vibration to be funneled to things that I don't believe in. I want everybody to be empowered in their own selves. I want people following their own authority. I want people to be authentic. This has to do with previous life experience, and I do believe past life experience for me, that this whole model where the masses' power and their authority and their embodied innate wisdom, the powers that be think that they will mishandle it. They don't know what to do with this power. It is right that all of the masses' power and authority is stripped away from them. They're dissociated from their bodies. They are sometimes abused into splitting off from themselves. They are taught to treat themselves like the enemy. And that is all just so that power can be consolidated, because they know how freaking powerful we are when we are embodied, when we do have access to our authority, right? It is a sacred warriorship, and they want nothing more than to squash it and strip us of our own power and keep us from embodying, from having access to the superconscious energies to help create the earth and the world and our lives in the way that we envision. Obviously, it wasn't a big deal for my friend, and that's okay. But for me, it was a big deal, because I cannot participate in any kind of practice or organization or situation where we are opening up people's subconsciouses, we are opening up people's power source so that we can vampirize it for somebody else, to necromance a guru or whatever the heck sick crap is going on. It makes me so angry. And where I'm at with this work, my spleen and I, right? I didn't necessarily need them to start reading the literature to validate what my spleen was telling me, but it was helpful because then I started to put two and two together. I went dancing after that, and that's when really the information from my subconscious surfaced, and I was really able to see, like, this is the dynamic. This is the dynamic of what was going on in that group. That's why I was uncomfortable and I won't be participating. I cannot give my energy to that kind of thing. And it's okay that it happens. But me, in my integrity, my 6'2" profile as a role model, I cannot. My energy is too powerful. I am doing this work in the world that I need to have this integrity. And so, yeah, was it okay that I gave my energies to it the first time? Sure, I didn't know. Would it have been okay if I did it the second time? Yeah, probably on the surface of it. But to go against my spleen would absolutely not be okay. And it wasn't even about this particular instance, because honestly, I think it's a lot of just brainwashed people who don't even know the deeper dynamics of what's going on themselves, right? That's kind of what I hope, is that they're more ignorant than malicious. That's Occam's razor, where you try to assume ignorance versus malintent, right? And I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. But for me, because I am aware, I just can't participate. And that one instance is really not that big of a deal. However, it was what my spleen needed to show me. It was the information that surfaced afterwards that was the important part. For my spleen and my body to teach me a lesson, to create a situation where this deeper motivation surfaces of like, yes, I see over and over again in my life this specific strand of spiritual warriorship where I just can't participate in a group ritual where we give our powers away to something else. No, that belongs to us. Take it back. Put it back in your own hands. Take control of your life. Own your shadow. Own your subconscious. And take back your birthright of embodiment so that you have access to what you need to access for your life. You have the power that you need for your own life, for your own path and your own journey. It might seem kind of silly. It wasn't like I overreacted to the situation. I was very like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. You didn't feel anything weird? Absolutely, because it's not about the other people. It's really not about what they're doing. They're actually not doing anything wrong. It's just what I needed to see. It was the strong reactions I needed to feel to reaffirm my path and to bring it to you guys, to share this with you, that it's just so clear that so much out there is just trying to suck off the top of our energies and trying to exploit us, keep us away from our own power, keep us from realizing and embodying our true powerful selves and having access to what we need to be creators. And we can all be manifestors in this life, even if you're not a human design manifestor. Absolutely, you can. And I just encourage you and empower you. Let's take this trip of embodiment together. Let's not frame it in terms of shadow work where we're demonizing ourselves. This is our biggest ally in this life, is our body, is our spleen or emotional center or sacral center, your gut feelings. All of our authorities, all of that embodied wisdom is what it's all about. Keep listening to my podcast, share, like, subscribe, whatever you can do to help further this information. If you have any comments or questions, down below, please get at me. I just feel supercharged. So thank you so much for listening today. Look out for that embodied dance practice I'm super excited about. And I think that's all for today. So have a wonderful deconditioning journey. Until I see you again. Bye for now.
If you're interested in truly experiencing embodiment and raising your energies for your own use and empowerment, stay tuned to my channel for my upcoming somatic dance practice videos to get closer to the wisdom of our bodies, to our authenticity, and to our one true authority in this life. Practice with you soon.